The disciples gathered silently beneath the shade of a Bodhi tree, their thoughts swirling like the gentle breeze. Among them, Ananda sat with a troubled heart, his eyes casting uncertain glances toward the Buddha's serene form. A stream murmured nearby, its voice a soft counterpoint to the beating of my restless heart. Lost in my own thoughts, I whispered aloud, "Buddha, where are you when my path seems so unclear?" The world held its breath, the leaves no longer rustling, as if awaiting an answer to my plea. This doubt is like a cloud that shadows the sun, obscuring its light but not extinguishing its essence. Ananda replied, his voice trembling, "Master, my heart falters, and I often feel I am unworthy of your wisdom. How can I overcome this?" The Buddha smiled gently, his expression reflecting patience and deep understanding. "Tell me, Ananda, when you look upon the forest, do you see a single tree or many trees?" Ananda hesitated, then answered, "I see many trees, Master, each unique in its shape, height, and branches." And yet, the Buddha continued, "Do you think any tree doubts its place within the forest? Does the mango compare itself to the banyan? Number, Master," Ananda replied, his brow furrowed in thought. "Each tree simply exists, growing in its own manner." Reaching toward the sky, the Buddha nodded, his hands resting lightly on his knees. "So it is with every being, Ananda. Each is born with a purpose, growing toward its unique essence. But, Master," Ananda interjected, "how does one find this purpose? How does one recognize their true value?" The Buddha gestured toward the ground, where small saplings emerged amidst the roots of towering trees. The sapling begins with patience, seeking sunlight and nourishment to grow. Its strength lies not in its size but in its persistence. Ananda listened attentively, his heart yearning to understand the wisdom woven within the Buddha's words. The Buddha's gaze softened, his voice carrying the depth of timeless truth. "The shadows that cloud your heart, Ananda, are not who you are," the Buddha said, his tone steady. "They are but illusions, shaped by fears and comparisons, obscuring the light of your essence." "But, Master," Ananda asked, his voice hesitant, "if these shadows are illusions, how does one dispel them and see the light clearly?" The Buddha pointed toward the horizon, where sunlight pierced through drifting clouds. "You begin by observing the shadow, recognizing its nature without embracing it as your truth. Through mindfulness, clarity emerges." Ananda absorbed these words, his mind turning over the wisdom like the steady grind of a millstone. "Trust grows through practice," Buddha replied, the clarity in his voice as refreshing as spring rain after a drought. "Practice observing the world as it is, not as your fears distort it. What if one falters along the way?" The Buddha smiled once more, his serenity unbroken. "A bird does not learn to fly without first falling. Each attempt strengthens its wings, leading it to soar." Ananda gazed at the Buddha, his thoughts slowly aligning with the simplicity and depth of these teachings. Yet he sought further guidance, his heart yearning for understanding. "Master," Ananda said, his voice earnest, "how do I cultivate the mindfulness needed to recognize the shadow and embrace my essence?" The Buddha took a deep breath, his eyes gazing at the distant forest. "Begin with stillness, Ananda. In stillness, the mind ceases its wandering, and clarity blooms like a lotus in the mud. To act is to engage with life. To accept is to trust it, like the river carves its path. So too can you choose your steps while embracing the unknown flow ahead." "Stillness does not mean emptiness," the Buddha added, his tone thoughtful. "It means presence, an awareness of each thought and feeling without judgment." I nodded slowly, the analogy sinking deep into my awareness, showing me the transient nature of my own doubts. "The path you walk, child," Buddha said, his voice as steady as the stream, "is no more linear than this water. Its purpose has shifted from sheltering the tree to nourishing the earth. Ananda watched the leaf, the sunlight illuminating its delicate veins. I stayed by the river, contemplating its truths. As the sunlight continued its gentle dance upon its surface, each ripple reminded me that life, like water, was ever-changing but infinitely interconnected, carrying the essence of existence forward. Its essence remains unbroken, serving its purpose in every stage. Ananda bowed his head, his thoughts gradually lifting like the mist that fades with the rising sun. Yet his heart still sought further guidance. Master, you speak of essence, Ananda said, his tone respectful. How does one define their essence amid the distractions of life? The Buddha closed his eyes briefly, his face serene as the flowing river. Essence is not defined by actions or possessions but by the intrinsic light within each being. Buddha turned his gaze to a lotus nearby, its petals pristine and vibrant, rising from the murky soil below. Observe this lotus, he said, his voice steady, as if the earth itself spoke through him. It grows in mud. I knelt beside the flower, its beauty undeniable despite its origins. Ananda, he said, his tone steady, your doubts arise not from weakness but from misunderstanding your own nature. Ananda rose, bowing deeply as he absorbed the wisdom offered to him. His heart, though still burdened, felt lighter with each passing moment. Master, Ananda said, his voice filled with gratitude, I will reflect upon your teachings and seek the light within myself. Trust begins with accepting the necessity of darkness. The lotus does not question the mud. It embraces it, finding strength to unfold its beauty toward the light. I nodded, though unease still lingered in my heart. What if the darkness overwhelms us? Master, what if we cannot rise? The mud is not your enemy, Buddha replied, though his path remained uncertain. The seeds of mindfulness and clarity had begun to grow. The gentle rustle of leaves and the soft hum of the breeze mirrored the quiet transformation within him. Ananda closed his eyes, his mind reaching toward the light of his essence. Another day began, the sun casting its golden rays over the village of Vasali. The disciples walked quietly, their hearts calm. They approached a modest dwelling where a potter, Suda, crafted her clay pots with care. Her hands moved deftly, shaping vessels from humble earth. Yet her heart carried a heavy burden. The Buddha watched her silently for a moment before addressing her. Suda, your work is meticulous and serves others well. Yet your heart is troubled, like a pot unbaked by the fire. Suda paused, her hands trembling as she placed the unfinished pot on the wheel. She turned to the Buddha, her voice low and hesitant. Master, Suda began, I feel my craft is insignificant in a world filled with grand deeds and great beauty. Her words lingered in the air, mingling with the earthy scent of clay and the distant hum of village life. The Buddha's eyes softened, reflecting an ocean of compassion and understanding. Suda, the Buddha said, his voice steady, observe the clay before you. What do you see within it? Suda glanced at the raw clay, its texture rough and unformed. I see clay, Master, formless and without beauty, she replied. The Buddha gestured gently toward the wheel where the pot rested, and yet, he continued, with patience and care, this clay transforms into a vessel that brings sustenance and life to others. Suda's brow furrowed as she considered his words. The Buddha reached for the pot, holding it delicately in his hands. This pot, he said, does not strive to be more than what it is. It does not compare itself to the sunlit fields or the towering mountains. He placed the pot back on the wheel, his movements deliberate and calm. Suda, the Buddha added, your craft, though simple, carries profound purpose. Each pot you create nourishes life, offering water to quench thirst. Suda's eyes began to glisten with unshed tears as she absorbed his words. But Master, she asked, her voice trembling, how does one find fulfillment when the heart doubts its worth? The Buddha stepped closer, his presence radiating a quiet strength. Fulfillment arises not from recognition or grandeur but from realizing your essence and embracing your unique purpose. Suda listened intently, her heart stirring with a mixture of doubt and hope. The Buddha gestured toward the fire where pots were baked. Observe the fire, he said, his tone reflective. It refines the clay, giving it strength and resilience. Your doubts are like unbaked clay, soft and uncertain. Suda nodded, her gaze fixed on the fire as she contemplated his teachings. But, Master, she asked, what if the fire consumes rather than strengthens? How does one withstand its intensity? The Buddha's eyes glimmered with gentle assurance. The fire does not destroy what is essential. Suda, it reveals and solidifies the inherent strength within. Suda felt a warmth spread through her heart, the seeds of understanding taking root within her. The Buddha continued, his voice unwavering, to overcome doubt, begin by recognizing it, not as your truth, but as a shadow that obscures your light. Suda wiped a tear from her cheek, her hands once again finding the clay. Master, how does one shape their essence as they shape the clay? She asked earnestly. The Buddha watched her hands move, the clay taking form under her careful touch. Begin with intention, he said. Each movement of your hands carries purpose, shaping not only the clay but also your spirit. Suda nodded, her focus sharpening as she continued her work. The Buddha's presence felt like a steady anchor in the flowing river of her thoughts. Intention, the Buddha added, is the foundation upon which fulfillment is built. Without it, even the most skilled craft becomes hollow. Suda felt a spark of clarity light up within her, illuminating the path ahead. But, Master, she asked, what if one's efforts seem small and insignificant in the vastness of the world? The Buddha smiled, his expression serene yet deeply thoughtful. A single pot, Suda, may quench the thirst of a weary traveler. Its impact, though unseen, ripples outward. Suda's hands moved with renewed purpose, her doubts slowly dissolving like mist under the morning sun. The Buddha observed her silently, allowing her to internalize the truth within his words. The disciples, too, watched in quiet reflection, their hearts touched by the simplicity and depth of the moment. After some time, the Buddha spoke again, his voice carrying the weight of timeless wisdom. Suda, your worth is not diminished by the scale of your actions. It lies in the sincerity of your efforts. Suda felt her heart lighten, the burden of doubt gradually lifting from her shoulders. Thank you, Master, she said, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. The Buddha nodded, his gaze warm and encouraging. Remember, Suda, he said, your value is not defined by comparison but by the unique light you bring to the world. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the village, Suda stood with a renewed sense of purpose. The Buddha and his disciples prepared to continue their journey, leaving behind a heart transformed and a lesson deeply ingrained. In the quiet moments that followed, Suda reflected on the day's teachings. Her hands moved with grace and confidence as she shaped the clay, each pot a testament to the wisdom she had received. The Buddha's words lingered in the air, a gentle reminder of the power of intention and the light within. And as the village settled into the embrace of night, Suda's heart shone brightly, like a flame that refused to be extinguished. Another day unfolded gently as the disciples arrived at the banks of the Ganges, its waters shimmering in the morning light. The lotus flowers bloomed amidst the murky riverbed, their delicate beauty untouched by the surrounding impurities. Ananda stood in silence, his gaze fixed on the lotus, his heart filled with both awe and questions. The Buddha approached the riverbank, his movements steady and deliberate, radiating calmness like the flowing waters before him. Ananda, he said, his voice serene, what draws your gaze so intensely toward the lotus flower? Ananda hesitated before answering, his thoughts cascading like the river's currents. Master, he began, the lotus thrives in murky waters. Yet it remains pure and untouched. How does it achieve this state? The Buddha's eyes softened as he studied the flower, its petals glowing under the sun's embrace. The lotus does not attach itself to the water. Ananda, he said, its roots anchor it, nourishing its growth, seeking the light above. Ananda nodded slowly, his gaze unwavering, yet a question lingered in his heart. Master, he asked, what of those who cannot see their own roots? How do they find their strength and purpose? The Buddha gestured toward the lotus, its petals swaying gently in the breeze. True value is not something to be found. Ananda, he said, it is something to be realized within oneself. Ananda bowed his head, absorbing the Buddha's words like the soil absorbing the river's flow. Yet his heart sought further wisdom. Master, Ananda asked, his voice soft, how does one discover this value when life's struggles obscure their vision? The Buddha knelt beside the river, his fingers tracing the wet earth with quiet deliberation. The mud that surrounds the lotus highlights its purity. Ananda, he said, adversity does not diminish value. It reveals strength. Ananda's thoughts swirled, the Buddha's teachings resonating deeply yet still leaving room for contemplation. The Buddha continued, his tone steady and reflective. Observe the lotus, Ananda. It grows toward the sun, seeking light, unshaken by the impurities below. Ananda's gaze remained fixed on the flower, his mind turning over the wisdom like the slow churn of the river's current. Master, he asked, how does one learn to grow toward the light amidst life's uncertainties? The Buddha's gaze shifted toward the distant horizon where the sun began its ascent. Begin with mindfulness. Ananda, he said, mindfulness nurtures clarity, revealing the essence that lies beneath the surface of doubts. Ananda closed his eyes, his thoughts slowly aligning with the Buddha's teachings, his heart seeking the path to understanding. The Buddha gestured toward the disciples, their presence a quiet witness to the unfolding wisdom. Each of you carries roots, deeply embedded within the soil of your being, he said. Recognize them, and you will find your strength. The disciples listened intently, their hearts stirred by the simplicity and depth of the Buddha's words. But, Master, Ananda interjected, how does one recognize these roots amid the distractions of daily life? The Buddha picked up a small stone from the riverbank, holding it lightly in his hand. Ananda, he said, this stone is shaped by the flowing water, but it does not lose its essence as a stone. He placed the stone back into the river, its presence unchanged amidst the moving current. Your essence remains unbroken, Ananda, even when life's currents challenge your footing. Ananda felt a quiet shift within his heart, the Buddha's wisdom illuminating the shadows of his doubts. Yet a lingering uncertainty remained. Seeking clarity, Master, he said, his voice respectful, how does one move toward the light when their path seems uncertain? The Buddha rose, his posture graceful as the lotus stem swaying in the breeze. The path, Ananda, is not always clear, but each step is a choice to grow toward the light. Ananda nodded, his thoughts growing steadier as he reflected on the meaning within the Buddha's teachings. The sun climbed higher, casting its warmth over the riverbank, the lotus flowers glowing like scattered jewels. The Buddha's voice softened, his tone carrying the weight of timeless truth. Ananda, your doubts arise not from weakness but from forgetting your inherent nature. Ananda bowed deeply, his gratitude shining through the calmness in his gaze. Thank you, Master, he said, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. The Buddha placed a hand on Ananda's shoulder, his touch gentle yet firm. Remember, Ananda, he said, you are enough as you are. Your value is infinite. like the river's flow, as the disciples dispersed to their reflections. Ananda lingered by the riverbank, his thoughts slowly settling like silt at the bottom of the water. The Buddha's words echoed within him, their truth weaving a tapestry of understanding and hope. The gentle sound of flowing water and the rustling breeze mirrored the quiet transformation taking root within Ananda's heart. He closed his eyes, his spirit reaching toward the light of realization. Though the path remained uncertain, the lotus flower stood as a beacon, guiding him toward the clarity he sought. It simply exists, holding truths that require no validation. I studied the stone, its texture raw yet peaceful, untouched by the complexities I assign to existence. Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video.